So I know in past workings,
Yeah, you tell me how this
in
works.
past practice, Mr. Mobbs, and our team would, but I know that Miss Pickering, I think, is.
She's on her.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think she was.
I think she is, but I just feel like we should probably, for
Yeah,
the
understood.
sake of being respectful of the people who are here, start on time.
But I do believe you called the
Okay.
meeting to
And
order.
and then do we do public commentary first? I know we have someone for public commentary, but how does that typically work? Is that first?
In our superintendent's working group policy meetings, they were not open. Not necessarily that they weren't open to the public. We never had anyone come to the public, but in the working sessions, I know we've always read the at least
Right.
policy, the public commentary policy, because we allow.
Okay.
So I think,
And I believe the commentary needs to be related to policies or to whatever we're talking about, the agenda topics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go ahead and call to order the Tuesday, November 26, 2024 policy working meeting. And we will start with public commentary. Is that what you just heard?
No, ma'am.
No.
So
Okay.
what we've done in the past with working sessions
Yes.
is we have,
We discuss first and then we allow public commentary.
we've never had.
We've never had it.
And that's what I just alluded to.
This is the first that we've held it in this type of format.
And so ideally what I think would be appropriate is just simply to read the public commentary policy that we have, or at least allude to the public commentary policy that we have, and we engage in dialogue and if the public would like to
Engage with us.
Yes, engage with us.
Okay, so it's not so much someone comes up and speaks, but if we're
No.
discussing something,
Yeah.
then they can join us at the table.
Just as we've done in the working
Okay,
sessions in
great.
past practice.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So I don't have any script here, but I will just say what you said, which is, as far as public, we are happy that you are here. But public commentary, we don't have a time where you come forward and you speak, but if we speak on a policy or a topic that relates to what you would like to engage with us on, and you would then join us at the table to discuss those policies. And the topic needs to be related to what is on our agenda today, which happens to be A through K on the agenda. Okay. So at this point, I'll hand it over to you.
So the first one is 0144.1, and it's on compensation. And the General Assembly last spring amended the compensation that you, as a board members, can receive. And with that, Mr. Cross had amendment to that you all passed on April 10th, 2024. And this is and I don't know if you have a copy of that. But what we thought we should do is roll this actually into the policy, what the change is, and that way it is part of the policy reflects it. And the only thing, and then you should have a copy of the policy as well. And it should be the first one that's listed there. The only change that we would look at making into this policy to follow what Mr. Cross wrote up for you would be under C 1 and 2. And C1 says for attendance of regular or special meetings of the board, the per diem sum is $150. And then 2 says for attendance at committee meetings of the board or at executive sessions of the board, the per diem sum of $75. Well, the changes that Mr. Cross made that you guys voted, the board voted on last April, changes or moves the special public meeting down to 2, subsection C2. And so the recommendation from me would be for attendance at committee meetings or special public meeting of the board at executive session of the board, the per diem sum of $75.
Okay.
That's good.
Kind of lowers the amount. Okay.
Yeah, just for that, just for
that
special public meetings.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, regular is 150, special.
And committee meetings
Committee.
are all 75. So I can make a change to that, and then we can bring that for first reading at the next board meeting if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah.
So you're just combining what we've already changed that we've already
Correct.
into one. So taking the amendment out and just making it one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any-
Yeah. Cleans it up a little bit.
Mhm.
The only thing I might add, ISBA's, I think they want to address, I don't know if it'll happen, but board compensation again in this session. It'd be nice if we could tie the numbers, if we could make them live, so whatever, and maybe the board's not interested in that, but where they would change, like if the state said, okay, next year it can be 160, or it can be, that we would just follow the state recommendation. I don't know how easy or difficult that would be, but I don't see them doing it every.
Yeah, it took them forever to change this one.
So maybe it's
Same.
not worth doing, but that would be the only thing. If that was simple to do, I would prefer if just the policy was live.
The and we could. I'm not sure we have any policies that do that, and part of that is because people get hard copies of the policy, and then you wouldn't have that link to be able to do that, and that might make it.
Is there
I
any,
don't know.
any wording to be able to say that if we follow what the state recommendation is? So it's not live. So I know we talked about it when we did the amendment, but then we also, I remember Ron saying it had been at least 10 years, I
Right.
think is what he said, since it had been. But is it in conversation again? So
Well, that's what they said at
Yeah.
Hagerstown.
okay.
But I think if you do that, then you're creating a paper chase. So if somebody does want to find out what that compensation is, they read this policy, and then they have to chase that down.
That's a good point.
Find out what that is. To me, I mean, and you can do, it's what the board's prerogative is, but
I
it's
guess we can see.
pretty easy
if
to
they
change.
change something. I guess, go with this, and then if they do change something in this session, I would like to revisit the policy
Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
That makes
Wow.
sense.
Just so that we're following it.
Yeah.
But then it would seem like it would,
Be a recurring thing we're gonna have
it
to
could
do.
go down.
Because Ron, they talked about that they may tie it in with, like, so it may have an index. So you're an index following an index, and so I'd rather just, than everything. Yes, if someone looks at the policy, but you could always say currently, that could be a number in the policy. You can say what the current number is, but it follows this index. But yeah, I'm happy to leave it as is, but depending what happens this session, maybe look at it again.
Okay. I'll make those changes then for first reading for the next board meeting. Thank you. The next one, board staff communication. Once again, we're using the spreadsheet that, and somebody asked that the only statement was that it was the exact same as policy number 3112, and it is. Once again, the policies are separated out by administration, staff, and really classified employees. And so that way, if a classified employee wants to find out what policies they should follow, they've got one section that they can look at. So it's the same wording and everything as 4112. That is correct.
Now, didn't we delete section C? On the,
Yeah.
We did.
yes,
Yeah, we
last-
did.
We did last night. So is that something that you would like to do with this one as well?
And we added the word official, and this is the same policy we looked at yesterday.
Yeah, we can make that official.
Whatever this is an old version, I believe.
Except
This is what we saw last night.
yeah,
No, but this one is for support staff. The one you saw last night was not for support staff. It was for
Ours was-
for board and staff.
staff. It was staff. Correct.
Okay, so it seems like these should be in alignment.
Yeah, they should be the same. So we can make those adjustments
Yeah.
and have it reflect what you approved last night.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
perfect.
And then we changed. And so I'll present this for first reading. The next board. Okay. The next one is 4120 job sharing. This also is just like the 13120.1 that we reviewed at the last work session. Once again, it's for support staff. And we didn't change anything to that policy. We didn't even bring it back for a reading. We felt like it was okay, or the board did. Once again, An example of this might be if we have a parent that may be working at IU East, or I'm sorry, taking classes at IU East, and they can only work Tuesdays and Thursdays because they get classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and somebody else is a stay-at-home person and they just want to work, the opposite days. So they want to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They don't want to work a full week because they got to get other things done. So what that does is it allows us to take one job and share it between multiple people. And we used to not do that, but we do it now, and it's
Times
worked
have
out for
changed.
Times have changed. Exactly right. So, is there any changes to this policy?
I don't see any.
No.
So this one doesn't come back before us, right? It's done.
It's done. It's already
Great.
policy. Okay. The next one we have is 4130, and that is assignment transfer. And once again, it is just like 3130. That is for staff. Only this one is for support staff. And I believe we didn't do anything with 4130. It was just the board members pointing out that they're the exact same. That's true. Once again, we allow staff to do that. We want staff to be where they're happiest, and there might be a change of when maybe they moved and they can only walk to work, or maybe they moved and they want to be able to take their kids to work, and so they put in for a transfer that way, or maybe they find out that they would much rather work with middle school students. That would be me. So so that might be reasons for transfer that they might request a transfer. And generally, we don't like to do that in the middle of the year. We give them an opportunity to put in for a transfer for the next year. So, any questions on that? Okay. 4170, substance abuse. Substance abuse, this policy is exactly like the one 3170, but once again for support staff, so it's the same thing. The thing that I like in this is that staff, if they realize they have have a problem with substance abuse, then they can ask for help, and we hope to provide that, without any discipline on our part for them. Try to get them the help that they need.
Would we actually offer help before they ask for it?
If we know, but there also is a difference between if we find out that they need help and if they violate other policies by showing up, and so that sometimes it's a little late, but we do try to work with them, try to help them out, and we do have programs at our availability that help that.
Alternative routes that they can take to receive the assistance,
Okay.
but also afford us the opportunity to uphold the code of conduct.
Yeah, I would hope like building leaders or.
Yeah, and a lot of times it would be peers
Okay.
that might let us.
Okay.
So is there a confidential path as well? I mean,
Well, actually, yes. So our EAP is one thing that can get somebody started on that, and that is completely so. EAP, they don't. Currently we just pay it for everybody, and they get those sessions, and we never know who attends those, who calls up, which I prefer, and so we never know anything that, and they can get a referral through EAP to something more substantial if they feel like that's what's warranted. So yeah, absolutely.
Do we, when you guys, maybe, back to school, I haven't been to that, but is there a point where you were communicating, like,
We do throughout the year.
organization or
Right.
like,
We do throughout the year, and new teachers that come in, we hit that pretty hard. If you look at the HR website, it's the biggest part of our website. We've got two full pages dedicated to the EAP advertising. I know Suicide Awareness Month was, I think, in October, and my benefit specialist, Vicki Fisher, she did a good job of sending things out. And our new EAP provider, CureLink, they provide us with some really nice things that are easy to read that we send out to the staff as well.
Kim, it's been very successful in the past. I do know this for a fact. And the confidentiality is there, in fact. And I believe that that any of the counseling or some of the assistance can be provided outside of the area. So, it does, if I recall, if it's still that way, so it doesn't, somebody sees somebody going into a location, next thing you know, the confidentiality is.
It's all online now, and it's kind of like Swift MD, if anybody's used Swift MD. And we, when I say we, I mean me. I try to tell everybody, go ahead and sign up for it now. I've signed up for it. I haven't used it, but to the point that if I ever did need it, the last thing I want to do is and it takes 5 minutes. But the last thing I want is 5 minutes of putting in my social security number and what all you have to. I don't even think it's social security number. Putting in your information so you can get somebody. So it should be more rapid. In addition to that, there's legal help there that they offer, financial help, financial assistance, because that a lot of times can lead to other things, problems in family relationships, and there's counseling for family relationships. I mean, it's really broad and all kind of. It's a fantastic program. So.
No, I love it. It's just I always like to get that.
Yeah. Out. And like I said, we continue to do that periodically. So, any questions on that?
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure whether it was.
And you actually, you all are more than welcome to come in. Actually, you don't have to go to the podium. You want to have a seat there, you're more than welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Join us.
That's part of the experience.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I just had a question in particular about that
Mhm.
policy. Are there guidelines or SOPs that are written so that an employee or anyone of the, on the working for the school can go and know and understand exactly what they could, all the things you were talking about is.
Yeah, so we do send those out. Those are the things that we send out periodically. Those advertisements. I don't know if they're advertisements, but those sheets to make them aware. And like I said, it's the biggest part on the HR website. So if you if you click on wearerichmond.com, you click on departments, human resources, and it's right there in your face. I mean, 2 full pages of the things that they do offer. Okay. And it's not only offered to the employees, but it's all the employees' families as well. And that's substitute teachers to Dr. Wright. I mean, it's everybody. So, and their family members.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Now, do I go back and take my?
You feel free. Thank you, Mrs. Scott.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Required reports and protection whistleblowers. Once again, we had this last night as well. And we can look into, I know one of the questions from the board last night was an anonymous reporting, and we can look into that. I don't know if there's a way that we can do that even with our technology department. I can talk to Mr. Hazelbaker. That was my thought last night after we left, to kind of minimize the costs. I don't know how difficult that would be to set up just a number that somebody could call and leave a message. But absolutely. But this is, same as 3211, only for support staff. And we discussed this in the last work session. I believe we made changes on that. I can look for that from last night and look and see what we had last night.
Why do we have all these? Why do we have separate policies for is that just a Neola thing?
Well, once again, I believe it is a Neola thing, and I don't know if anybody else does it because I'm only familiar with Neola right now. But it's to help the employee. So if I'm a teacher, then I'm staff, and then I don't have to go through pouring through all the others. I can look at a specific. I know the 3000s are my policies. That sort of feel direct. Yeah.
Compared to the class.
I mean,
I wish it was a template.
Yeah,
and then
I have.
you would split it up, right?
I'm guessing all of them. I mean, I can't really envision many. There'd be very few incidents where there'd be differences. But I think they should all read identical, like for this one.
Right.
And so I think that becomes a much more harder thing to manage because you miss saying it, then get updated. And so now you have 2 very similar policies. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like if I was doing it myself, this is not how I would do it. I understand your point, grouping them for the employee, but to have basically mirrored policies throughout your policy manual just seems like government bureaucracy.
Well, and it's something that I can be aware of, or whoever is the holder of of the amending that we just know if we look at one, we need to look at all of them. And the changes that we had last night were, I believe it was something you pointed out when we looked at the one for staff, was changing the employee. It's actually the district's employee and not the board's employee. So I can make those changes and bring those to first reading on the next board meeting.
You know, Mr. Weber brings up a great point. I think that as we continue to move in these forum conversations regarding policies, I think it may behoove us to ask that Attorney Cross be present as well. The only reason I'm saying as such is because, to Mr. Weber's point, the redundancy seems to be a bit much. However, I'm curious to know, again, not being a lawyer, I'm curious to know if there is a legal rationale between having things spelled out or not spelled out. I know in being deposed a time or two within my professional career, I know at times small subtle differences, depending upon the legal representation, can be exaggerated or minimized. And so I think as we move forward, if that's something that you all would be interested in, I can find out as we continue to schedule these moving forward, Attorney Cross, or if we want to have another legal representative weigh in and help guide us through some of this as well.
Actually, I was gonna say, I think if we move forth someday with a student board representative, I think like categorizing these like on a spreadsheet, because we've talked, like we go through these and it's, yeah, like there's two different policies, but that I think would be a good exercise of going through, right? We have the template and then really marking, oh, hey, this is 3211 and 4211. So that when we go to update one, we talk about one, oh, hey, it has 4211. So then we want to keep the numbering the same, but
Cross reference.
Right. And the other thing is,
and then the exceptions
right.
that might be different. We can talk
The other thing is in any type of disciplinary action, so if somebody violates a policy, then that's something that we reference. This is a violation of, and that goes to what Dr. Wright was saying. There might be a legal.
We might, it'd be interesting to know Neola. I mean, I might put the question, there's a lot of policies that are mirroring in different sections. Is there a way around that? Is there, maybe they have a better reason for it?
Was it done that way before Neola?
No.
Okay, so Neola does this. Yeah, I don't like it either. I think it makes it confusing.
And a good attorney, if we have two policies that only vary by a word or two, a good attorney can slice and dice this with that. Because you would say, why is this different for you versus you? And we would, I don't think even Ron could defend this particularly well. But so that just makes it, then we have to make sure they're always identical unless there's very specific things that are different.
on the template, Stacey, Mr. Mops, official meetings there. Can you update the code on the templates?
So yes.
Okay.
What you mean? Change the number of it?
Yeah.
Software.
Yeah. I mean.
I don't think so. I think that's something that we would have to petition.
Okay. Well, it's like, could you put 3211 and 4211, and then
And I'm sure you could at the bottom you could put reference and put a footnote at the bottom that says that references those other policies too. And that might be a.
Didn't we have that once? That at the bottom. That
There are
some of ours do.
Some of ours
they
do.
reference to other policies that correlate to that
I
same.
think it's just legal. I don't know if I've seen the actual
The one
policy.
policy last night that we changed, it had a note at the bottom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I can work on that, and those we can add pretty
That would be
easy.
nice if we could just
Yeah.
do.
And that way, that would give you a reminder that there are other
And then we're
policies. And that
updating
might,
one.
yeah.
Well, if you recall, Kim, when we were doing this and we were meeting down there on your screen, you also had, if I recall, this policy also references, back to policy X and policy Y as well. So that was very beneficial.
The other thing on this, I think Nicole mentioned and I mentioned is sort of hashing out the reporting structure.
Hmm.
And maybe it's more for an example for employees and, you know, which I think it says, you know, go to your immediate supervisor. You know, you can go directly to the superintendent or you can go to HR. I think it's important to just reference HR in here too. So that if they don't feel comfortable, then Stacy or the safe place.
Should be, shouldn't I? So,
But just reminding them of that, because I think when people might be in situations like this, they don't feel safe regardless, like they don't know who to go to.
so would you like me to add something like that to this and the policy that we had last night as well? I know we talked about that. Okay.
I think we should also define try to somewhat define what's a reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
So
Any ideas from you?
Yeah.
Any suggestions from the board?
It says, you know, the supervisor does not respond within a reasonable time. Well, that might be different from me to you.
It is absolutely it is.
I mean, I say like 48 hours.
I might think it's a week, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I would say
Do we have any idea how long we do it?
no, it's going to depend on the nature of the.
I would do 72 hours.
72 hours. So that's
72 hours.
Yeah.
is that agreeable to everybody?
Yeah, I'd rather.
Good job, Mike.
it's that first contact.
Yeah, your promise, you over deliver. I would hope that would be a lot
Mr.
faster
Watt,
than that.
72 hours. Is
The concern I would have going to paragraph 3, the last statement, or failing to make a report required by this policy. If it could also spell out what violations mandate an immediate reporting of it upon, you know, in my profession, you know, there are 3 things that by law must be reported. But with this, it says, you know, or failing to make a report required by this policy. But what are the reports? Or what are the policies? And what requires an immediate reporting of it once you gain knowledge of it? That way we don't leave ourselves open for interpretation. But I mean, if we have specific policies that exist, that may be related to state or federal law, something like that, if it could be spelled out in here for our protection.
To me, it would be the very first line of paragraph 2, federal or Indiana law, board policy, or administrative guidelines.
I think
Is that
that
what it's referring to, or
yeah, but I think that I see it as that needs to be spelled out. Like it should end after right. You're subject to disciplinary action, blah blah blah, making a false report under this policy. Period.
Well,
And then failing to make a report required by this policy. That's how I read it.
so my concern, I'm just going to throw this one out pie in the sky and make it up. But, you know, we've got a policy that says no chewing gum, you know, in class, all right? And we've got a policy on that. But if I find out that, well, she's been chewing gum in class in violation of this policy, am I required to report that? I just wanted to see, are there specific ones that require to be immediately reported?
Yeah, what are those?
well, I know like CPS
Right.
is an example. But boy, I would hate to. For myself, I'd rather somebody else make that call. I would hate to list them and then miss one. That'd be pretty tough to do.
That's going to be such a broad.
Yeah.
That's going to be such a broad. I might be able to get you some examples,
Okay.
just in case. You know, it's not a biggie, but I'm just thinking maybe it is big,
Can you?
and you'll never know until we get to that point.
There's definitely a difference between failing to make a report to CPS and failing to make a report that somebody was late to work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can we reword
Or chewing
the
gum in
second
class.
part of that, or as teachers and staff? Is that something you guys go over also? Right? There's as a
Well,
teacher,
and
I mean, I'm
you
sure
can.
talk
We
about
do
it.
go over this, but the other thing is that you can follow is if I fail to make a report for CPS, and then I understand, and Officer Stevens, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You can that is against the law, and you can be arrested for that.
Mhm.
And so if you're arrested for that, then you're going to lose you're going to be terminated
Mhm.
anyway because you can't break the law. So, I mean, it's kind of covered anyway, a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But think about
So
the
you
other
could
way.
kind of take that out and still be good.
There's things that people probably don't know that they should be reporting because they don't want to be that.
We
So
let
if-
them know what they have to we let
Okay.
them know they have to report to CPS.
Okay.
That is mandatory training, and we watch a video on it, and then we have policy on it, then we make sure they understand too.
Okay.
But within this, I think
Well, you would have a
question
good,
is-
you would have a,
for employees, providing them with examples as to what is required of reporting with. And I think that's to Member Stevens' perspective, if you can provide us some examples, maybe even some of the things that you all, as you mentioned, use. We can take a look. But yes, I think to provide clarity, I think is the goal.
Yes.
Because yes, that broad paintbrush. And again, I know it's at times, and I think it was mentioned. I think Mr. Mott just mentioned it. Sometimes there's a challenge in maybe missing something if you go to the list. However, at the same time, encouraging or at least providing some assurance that folks may be on the right train of thought if they think, you know what, should I report this? Should I not? You want them to have at least a list of ideas.
Well, especially if maybe they have in the past and nothing happened, like having this to.
Yeah.
If I had something, this would back me up if it was like, give some examples and, you could point directly to it. But
Another way that line item about failing to make a report required might also be interpreted as I go to my direct supervisor with the complaint and my direct supervisor doesn't do anything about it. That's failing to report or to act on it. So I would be careful leaving that out because you want to have some type of consequences for not responding to a complaint that's received.
I think that goes back to the reasonable time too. I mean, if we set that reasonable time and that supervisor
Doesn't
do it,
report
Right.
it. If it doesn't report it, say anything.
yeah, that's your door as the employee to walk through and take it to the next level or to the superintendent or what have you.
And I think
Put that
that's
safeguard or that guardrail in place if the supervisor doesn't respond.
I think to member Brand's point is that even as it reads there, if any supervisor does not respond, you should find any supervisor or officer whose words or actions are in question, the employee shall make the report. Yeah, and again, from the superintendent, I think again it goes to the board. If I am the party that the employee has this challenge with.
okay. Officer Stevens, can you provide me some
I
examples?
can.
And I'll have this reflect the other policies that are related to this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Severance pay just says they'll follow the administrative guidelines set by the superintendent. That's 4415. Generally, it's the unused sick days that they've accrued, and that is upon retirement. I'm not sure why somebody requested that we just look at this again. The severance pay for schools is a whole lot different than severance pay in the private sector.
I
So,
think
I guess it's a given, right?
Yeah. So private sector, I mean, you might get a couple weeks vacation. We don't have that. It's and I believe the Indiana statute or the Indiana General Assembly has addressed this as well. So you get paid out for the sick days, and you don't get paid out all of them. It's 70 days.
Can you explain the 6 days for me real quick? So if a new employee comes into Richmond Community Schools as a teacher, how many sick days do they get?
You
per
get
year.
So teacher, I believe they get 12 the first year. They get personal days, and then they get less from thereafter. We all know new teachers always get more sick because they are exposed to things they've never even thought of before, and there's a lot of sickness.
And those accrue as
those accrue. They say personal days do get moved over to sick days if they don't use them. If you come from another district, you can bring those days with you, so they transfer over 100%. Some school districts, if I moved here from another school district and I had 15 sick days, some school districts will give you 3 at a time. You can only bring in 3. We take them all at once. go ahead and add those in. Anybody hired after a certain date, I'm not sure what that date is. We don't have very many that were hired before that. It's 70 days. You can accrue as many as you want. You get paid out your 70 days, and it's really embarrassing. It's for teachers, it's $30 a day. It's not very much at all. There's not a lot of incentive for people to save those sick days.
So use your sick days. So are we have a protocol. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I just,
Exactly what I need.
I'm like, my kids.
So I mean, so we have yeah, okay. So I'll do some digging in on this. Just thinking about sick days.
Yeah.
I'll give you a heads up, corporate America. You're gonna be like,
Yeah.
It's
a lot.
you know, it's from I mean, going from the business side to the educational side, it's one of these where it's a dove factor, it's a DUH factor for me. It's let's take care of our employees.
Previously, you got paid out your days at your daily rate, 100% all your days. That's a lot. That was a pretty heavy.
I would have to say whole year. I mean, if you really.
Oh yeah, well, so when I retired from here, and I won't get paid out my sick days anymore. When I retired from here, I had 240 some sick days because I never missed, and so I got paid out 70 of them at 21. So I got $2,100 before taxes for 30 years of coming to school sick. Because that's what you did. That's what I was taught to do.
You should have used your sick days.
I want to give you some.
There were a day or two that I probably should have stayed home, but that's not what you do as a teacher. I mean, a lot of teachers don't do that because one, it's harder to plan for when you're not there, and then the entire time you're laying in bed miserable, you're thinking about what's going to happen when I get there the next day.
Let me play devil's advocate here. Is there an incentive to say, hey, teachers, please take your sick days because we want you to be healthy when you come into the school. In the sense of, if you're bagging them,
right,
because you're afraid to not.
Well, it's a fine line too, and I think, and I know we're hot mic'd here, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I think it's a generational thing too.
Correct.
A lot of,
I
but a lot of, and I'm an old guy, and my dad and mom taught me to.
Tough it up.
Yeah, tough it up, and it's different now, and so we're probably seeing less of that now, and probably on the next board meeting you're going to see deductible days. So once teachers run out of those sick and personal days, they start getting deductible days, and they start losing pay for that. And some of those are some of those are and. Some of those are very, and I don't want to say some of those are legit because they're all legitimate. I mean, people are, if you get sick, you can stay home.
Yeah,
correct.
Right.
We do have a sick bank that can be used, but that's very specific. Like if I had the flu or let's say I had surgery and I'm out 6 weeks and I used all my sick days and I needed another week or two. So I could apply to the sick bank since it's a long-term illness, then I could get sick days from the sick bank. And so I would be covered for that. But then 3 weeks later, all of a sudden I have the flu and I'm out one day. Well, sick bank won't cover that because there's a definition of what qualifies to receive from sick bank.
So let me, and sorry, I'm just
No, you're good.
But do we have mental health days?
So no more personal days.
Four personal
days, but mental health days.
Those are part of your sick days or either one.
So that classifies sick days.
It's so we don't. If someone puts in for sick bank, we don't ask them, okay, were you going to a doctor for yourself? We don't ask all those questions.
So that encompasses all of that. Okay.
Yeah. And then your sick days can be used to take family members to the doctor. We've got family members whose
i.e. their kid is in school, they need to take it to the
right, or a spouse or a parent has an illness that they need help with. That so sick days can be used for that as well.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Say really quick, Mike, we can fill you in. As the board, we really started talking about administration too, like using sick and vacation and all of their days and taking that time. Started that this past year, so.
So any issues with severance pay? I think it was a question that you had because you didn't.
Yeah,
at the time you didn't know.
Yeah. Just like, wait a minute.
All right, we don't have to do anything with that then. 44-1903 Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, and that once again I believe was a reflection to two other policies that probably were the same. Can look on here real quick. To follow any and all ACA guidelines that pertain to benefit coverage, and that's what we do. And then it was why different than other staff, and it's not different than any other staff. The support staff is the same as administrative staff.
And Mr. Noriaga, what Mr. Moss is referring to is a database that was created for the board to interject, engage, and pose questions pertaining to policies. And then from this, Mr. Moss is pulling different policies that come to question by different.
So they were. It was a comparison of previous board policies and new board policies. Okay, that brings us to 322002. Supplemental payments for teachers. And what this is so by statute now, teachers in grades. I can't remember what grades they are, but teachers now, and definitely in grades K through 6, and I believe it might go through 8, are required to have a reading endorsement, a literacy endorsement. And this allows us to give them kind of a bonus pay for having that endorsement that is beyond the contractual pay and beyond the salary schedule. And so this allows that. The state right now is paying for teachers to go through that training. So they get paid a stipend for going through that training. And then there's an exam that they have to take and pass in order to get that endorsement, and they're paying for that exam too. The state is paying for that exam. So we've really pushed for teachers to get that endorsement. It doesn't go into, I think it's 2027, 2026. I can't remember exactly. It's actually going to be a requirement to get their license. So I know Indiana University, all the universities are now putting that as part of their curriculum. It's 27.
I think it's 27.
I think it is too. They're putting that as part of their curriculum, so all graduates will have gone through that. But they're trying to catch up the people who graduated prior to.
So why are we going with option 2 instead of option 1?
I think so we can define it.
But do we want to, if it's going away in 2027, and does this mean if I have that endorsement, I get it seems like language, I don't know why, it seems like you can do it now on the superintendent's discretion.
Right, and really, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like option 1 could really allow under the superintendent's discretion, if there was another one that would pop up beyond the literacy endorsement, it would allow them to do that too. So I kind of agree with you.
I see option 1, but I would want to make sure. I don't know if that would be an administrator guideline where they're spelled out.
Well, the endorsements might pop up at any time. We might not know what those endorsements are.
But we've typically done like math and science, correct, at the high school for supplemental pay.
No, there's supplemental pay for AP positions,
Okay.
for that kind of thing. Hard to fill is a one-time stipend.
Okay.
So this would kind of be like that. So I agree with you, Mr. Weber, that if you did option 1, that would kind of leave it up to the purposes.
Open though, specifically, is if there's a person in this role that then they could use this outside of what we kind of our intent would be. Like they could issue any sort of supplemental pay,
Appreciate
or is something really defined by those endorsements? If it's not, to me that leaves us open.
this.
Put it in ordinance.
Yeah, I just want to make sure supplemental pay means something, not any payment, any extra money. That's why I was looking at option 2, because it's
But if it's going away in 2027,
maybe, but you don't want to leave it.
I mean,
Okay.
literacy's going away.
In 2027 is when it's the requirement. Everybody will have to have it.
So
until everybody's on
So-
a level playing field.
Correct. So if I were going to renew my license today, and I'm an elementary teacher, I would not have to have that reading endorsement. As of I believe it's 2027, if I were to renew my license, I would have to have that rating endorsement.
So what?
So that's the difference.
So
That's
if
what
I
happens
get
with
it,
27.
if I am currently receiving it, and then 2027 rolls out, do I now lose it?
That's where I want to know.
Well, that would be
If everybody has to have it, so now it's not an
right.
extra.
No, it's not
Everyone-
extra.
As a board, we just up the salary for everyone, whatever that number is. I mean, it's no longer a tool to focus.
To incentivize
Right.
them to get the. If it's going away in 2027, then everybody. I mean, it's like, well, hey, I got this pay bump now. Everybody's getting the pay bump.
Let's do some more homework, gain some more insight, and bring this back.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah. Those are great questions.
Clarifying question.
Hello, Ms. Pierce.
So is it that the board has to choose whether to adopt 1, 2, or 3, and then that will be the policy?
Mhm.
Option 1, 2, or 3.
Correct. Yes, I did.
I mean, that's what they're proposing, Neola is, but I guess we could do anything we wanted. Really.
So the option 3 is the one that includes the teacher representative, the teachers union, in discussing supplemental, and that's the only one that does. I assume that the law now states that the board doesn't have to include the teachers union in discussing this,
Correct.
but it's an option that the board can choose. I know that as a retired teacher, there were strong feelings from teachers about supplemental pay that wasn't fair to everybody who was working just as hard as each other. I think there was a lot of feeling that teachers who did additional training should be reimbursed for that, but also some concerns about large chunks of supplemental pay going even to positions that are hard to fill because then other people felt left behind. So just something to think about.
Good insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce.
We'll work on that and bring it back to you. So we won't bring it to the board. We won't bring it back to this group.
Okay, great.
That's all right. Okay, 0144 board ethics. They also, there's also administrative and staff ethics that reflect the same policy. And I know there's been quite a bit of discussion on this. So.
Yeah, to me on this one, and I'll just be part of it. If we keep something like this, it just seems like it's way too big. And I would like to pare down board member ethics to really kind of be more of the board member statement thing.
Board beliefs.
Board beliefs, mission and vision, like to kind of, that's what I feel like the ethics is.
I mean, yeah, maybe with mission, vision, board beliefs, or you have a corporation ethics. I mean, maybe if that's like a just another document that everyone follows this, not board specific.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at the ISBA staff, refrain from transmitting personal identifying images of students, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know, but I've got probably 2,000 photos of students on Facebook right now on my John Weber photography side. And I don't have it. And yes, it was at sporting events and other events. It was in the school, even some of them. I mean, so I guess I've not followed that one. I mean, there's several others that I'm like, all right, I'm not following this, I'm not following that. I mean, if someone wants to put the pencil to the paper.
That's where it's like,
I
I was looking at the third section, E, referring all complaints to the proper administrative office, and by discussing them only at a regular meeting
Yeah, that's
after failure of administrative solution. While totally fine, that's not an
I think a
ethic,
lot of
that's like a guideline. And maybe there's board meeting guidelines, like board process guidelines that some of these might fall under.
Maybe we should just start with the first one and figure out, did we do that?
Yeah.
Look through each of these and decide, does
Yeah.
it go here? Does it So thinking always in terms of children first. Is that
Yeah.
an ethic?
I think that's enough.
We all agree?
But it's not a policy.
No, but let's just talk about, like, let's,
I mean, that would go in an ethics
right,
format,
but that's,
but not in a policy.
but let's like break, like, forget about like a policy.
Yeah.
I think let's just
Forget how we're
identify-
organizing.
Okay,
Let's
so-
just,
okay,
just,
so-
yeah.
this we're gonna say is ethics.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. And then B, understanding the basic function of the board member is policy making and not administrative, and by accepting responsibility of learning to discriminate intelligently between these two functions.
Yeah. I feel like that. All good, like,
E,
what?
What's that?
ethic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sound good.
I was like, wait a minute.
I literally just wrote
Ding.
two.
Me too. I got you 2 E's.
P for policy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Kim, do you want to take over here?
Oh,
Because I'm not in charge of that.
Yeah.
Getting
Oh,
that. I am not in charge of this meeting.
Yeah, C, accepting the responsibility along with her fellow board members of seeing that the maximum of facilities and resources is provided for the proper functioning of schools. Yeah, I see that's enough.
They would say like overseeing.
Overseeing
I
the
don't know. Just
responsibility.
the seeing part, it just makes like seem like we are like, but we are kind of over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Of overseeing the
It's a
maximum.
NISBA, use that overseeing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That ethics, yes.
D, refusing to play politics in either the traditional partisan or any petty sense. I think E.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of.
I think that's subjective, though. I mean, somebody gets their feelings hurt by
True.
whatever.
I the climate of trying to go bipartisan. I like it in there because, but that could be like board beliefs too.
I mean, play politics. I mean, like I remember at the governor's luncheon, first thing I did was hit a Brock's embarrassed playing
Well, I
politics.
think play politics is like if there's a controversial issue that you would be like, I'm identify with this political party, therefore I'm only. That's how I read that.
All right. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I would scratch it first.
I would echo.
So it's a question mark.
I would echo.
Well, we'll put in the E, but then we'll turn it down. E, representing at all times the entire school community.
He, the one I left actually. Pretty
F, accepting the responsibility of becoming well informed concerning the duties of board members and the proper function of public schools. E. G, recognizing responsibility as a state official to seek the improvement of education throughout the state. E. Okay. Second section, the school board member shall respect her relationships with other members of the board by recognizing that authority rests only with the board in official meetings and that the individual member has no legal status to bind the board outside of such meetings. E. Recognizing the integrity of her predecessor and associates and the merit of their work. E.
That one, I mean, but that one's just saying recognizing former board members. Is that what you guys read that as?
I took it as like we don't disparage
Well,
decisions.
We don't, okay,
Previous. That's how.
okay.
I think it's understanding the history and what we lost Aaron. I mean, like
Mhm.
we're talking about the reconfiguration and the board. Why we have fifth grade out of elementaries is that the board made a conscious effort to put preschool in the elementaries. That was the trade-off, and so I think having some institutional knowledge of that, well, no matter what we do forward, but to realize there was a time where that was a big decision and the board came to that decision, and so I think it's due some.
Respect or
Yes.
not talking
Yeah.
bad about previous board decisions
yeah.
without.
Not that it was right or wrong. I mean, you can
Yeah.
have a different opinion, but that was the board's
Mhm.
decision, and
At that time.
that carries
Yes.
some weight. And so moving forward, I think we consider that.
Yeah, okay.
That's
C, refusing to make statements or promises as to how she will vote on any matter which should properly come before the board as a whole. E,
Mhm.
and making decisions only after all the facts bearing on a question have been presented and discussed. It made me laugh because like that's the intent, but we don't always know if we've gotten all the facts. But E,
The E with hope.
yeah, respecting the opinion of others and by graciously conforming to the principle of majority rule. E, refusing to participate in irregular meetings such as secret or star chamber meetings, which are not official and which all members do not have the opportunity to attend. E,
Yeah, but I don't know
where's
what
that
that
an action?
means. I
No,
mean,
that's really nothing.
we only meet as 7 or in this format.
It's
or
like
in
parking
executive
lot
format.
conversations with groups of 4 like people.
Well, more than 3, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like we talked a little bit last night after the meeting,
Mhm.
3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. No, but I mean, I think
If I could interject,
Well, it-
from my experience that I had, I know they really talk about this kind of thing at that new board member training. And if you haven't attended that, I really suggest that you do. It's coming up in January, and they really kind of define that and really talk about that ethically.
We
They-
watched some videos.
We did. They have examples of 2 board members that are engaging in so I think that they did a good job of that training.
We went during one of our retreats. Actually, yes, during one of our retreats. Maybe a year and a half ago. We watched those same videos.
I was
The board invited those videos and we watched them during one of the retreats. Actually, it was in the boardroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you were
Understandable.
But is that an ethic? I feel like that would be a board guideline. That's just what I'm going to call it.
Well, I would just take out the such as secret or star chamber meeting. I would just say refusing to participate in irregular meetings, which are not official and which all members don't have. I mean,
Okay.
to me that just sounds.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like they exist, right? I think it gives the impression that.
But I think I think we should have parking lot chats. So, E
Okay.
as revised.
G, attempting to fairly appraise both the present and future educational needs of the community. I mean, these are hard. I was like, yeah. But do you write that in?
Maybe both.
Is that a guideline?
Or is that-
Yeah, I think you can.
Do we put G?
Because that one's so subjective. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just attempting to fairly. I mean, it's so vague.
Right. Yeah. I put a G. Exception.
All right.
A board member shall maintain desirable relations with the superintendent of schools and her staff by striving to procure, when the vacancy exists, the best professional leader available for the head administrative post.
It's a G.
It's a G.
I think so.
Giving the superintendent. Does that say? What does that say? I scratched it out. Full.
administrative.
I scratched out full administrative authority for properly discharging her professional duties and also by holding him or responsible for acceptable results. Like I feel like the full is
A little strong.
yeah.
Is that a G though? Anyway.
Yeah. I think so. Acting only upon the recommendation of the superintendent in matters of employment or dismissal of school personnel. That's a G. Having the superintendent present at all meetings of the board except when her contract and salary are under consideration. G. Referring all complaints to the proper administrative office and by discussing them only at a regular meeting after failure of administrative solution. That's a G, but also that is.
Can you just cross out everything after and just have it referring all complaints to the proper administrative office? Is that just not good enough?
I think that's good enough.
You covered the other in previous statements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it reads weird.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I feel like that opens up like.
And you can't talk about. You're not supposed to talk about personnel, right? And so let's say, have a complaint about a,
But we want to follow the proper, I mean,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
communicate
Yeah.
through Curtis. I mean,
Right.
so,
so I like
you know
John,
me,
your
I like to
suggestion.
send him, little tidbits all the time, like toilets and light bulbs.
We appreciate
Oh,
that.
you do.
But he can do with it what he will, but
Yeah.
just pass it along.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So G,
G. Striving to provide adequate safeguards around the superintendent and other staff members to the end that they can live happily and comfortably in the community and discharge their educational functions on a thoroughly professional basis. This statement really bothers me. I don't know if it needs rewritten. Like, I think Kristen, I was like, what are safeguards? Like,
I don't know what it
to me, it's like,
means or says.
we
Yeah, that
can
I find it
theoretically try to force facts by creating policy, but this is like,
I mean, why would you call it the superintendent? I mean, I know he's our only employee, but I mean, it seems like, or it does other,
Yeah, it says other
it
stuff.
says other staff
I would
members
just-
like we control that.
I would just exit.
They don't
like we
report
can
to us.
live happily, they can live happily and comfortably.
Sounds like I'm reading a fairy tale book.
Yeah.
Jake.
Like what?
Jinx, right? Like what? Yes.
I say cross it all out.
So,
I think we also have the opportunity with all of these to go back and pose questions to Neola as to what the rationale was in inserting. But at the same time, Mr. Mops, were these particular ethics already embedded within our
I believe so.
prior to Neola? So it's been around for a while.
I can look.
I guess going back to what you all mentioned before, I'm curious to know why some of your predecessors in the same role felt that was important to include, if it was.
Well, we just talked about we can't just judge them,
we
right?
can't disparage.
And
Oh,
disparage.
absolutely.
So-
No. What I'm referencing is,
I mean, I could offer insight, but
yeah, no, I'm curious to the rationale as to why they.
I don't think this policy has been looked at since our last.
I was gonna say, I
policy.
think we're just digging into it more and maybe,
Yeah. So I think it may or may not have existed and no one knew.
So I think it should read more like striving to provide adequate safeguards around the district, period.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think you just take it out.
Or do we take it out?
I don't think it adds any value.
Well, Doctor, what do you think? I mean, this affects you. I mean, you're listed in this,
I think again,
We all
but particularly
Yeah.
his role is mentioned.
yeah,
This
no,
might be in, there's another board policy about our duties. So that might be addressing our duties, board member duties. Is that what it's called? Okay, go ahead, sorry.
no, you're good. I think that again, in looking past even I in this role, but anyone in this role, any type of assurance of support from one's employers and support from the board, while striving to do one's very best in keeping the corporation's best interests at heart, allows me or anyone in this role to have the confidence to strive to lead effectively. I think that, and again, I'm curious to know, and I think Mr. Weber brings up a great point. I'm curious to know what their intent was when it references live happily and comfortably. And yes, there is some fable to that.
It wasn't in the last staff ethics that from the previous.
Previous, good, okay, so that's, yeah, I'm curious to know why they would, but no, any and all safeguards and or protections that a board can provide. This role
you've
is
done it.
major.
And you've done it by promoting 260 employees to take their vacation days to spend time with their families. I mean, that was the whole purpose of that push to.
Well, and just the day-to-day operational side of things and the decisions that this role has to arrive at, it's major. And knowing that that the board is there, especially if there are other entities or other factions that may be.
But even it says live comfortably. I mean, and I know we can't, that's not a requirement of your job, but you don't live in the community. And it says we're supposed to make you happily and comfortably in the community. I mean, I just don't see the value of the whole sentence. I mean, we support you through, we just given you a generous contract with a generous extension. I mean, that our actions speak.
Mhm.
And if that's not good, and if we did not do that and wanted to do a different direction, then that speaks to have a statement that's not going to have really any impact on those, on your evaluations, on contract, your compensation, how you treat.
I mean, if we say something like we value the superintendent's well-being,
Mhm.
that simplifies it.
Yeah.
But when you say happily and comfortably, it just seems,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, of course I want you to live happily and comfortably, but at the same time, though, living in the community, you kind of get yourself involved in in the day-to-day functions of our students, our teachers, our parents. At the same time, though, if one is not living in the community, we've got to make sure that we want to make sure that the well-being
Yes.
of the superintendent is
We have a lot of staff members that don't live in the community either.
true.
So
My
me-
first thought was to take out to the end that they can live happily and
Yeah,
comfortably in
just
the
that-
community.
that
But
throws it
then
out.
when that is taken out, it pretty much reads as B does, that we're already have.
Giving the superintendent extra
Right.
ability.
Striving to provide adequate safeguards around the superintendent and their staff members so they can discharge their educational functions on a thoroughly professional basis. But that's what B says above. So then,
Wait, and if I can, if you don't mind, if I can interject and then retreat back to be, you all referenced full administrative authority. And I think a few months ago when we looked at this, I think the way in which I interpret that does not give me full or does not give this role full administrative authority to have the autonomy to be like that of a king. The way in which I interpret it, and I'm curious to know from a legal standpoint, it gives me autonomy to discharge my professional duties, that the duties that are associated with this role. Not so much full monarchical rule, but full authority to discharge the professional duties that you all have granted me, duties that only you all have granted me to discharge. That's the language I'm interpreting. Again, I could be wrong, but I think that's, and so by striking and or removing full, um, I don't think honestly. I know I'm not going to look at it and say, well, it's going to change the way in which I know. But someone, my predecessor, or again, I'm curious to know why they included such verbiage. But to your point, this and going back to F, yes, B does. But Mr. Eloriaga brings up a great point. The well-being.
I like
think that's
that.
that's
I
a
like that
great
you
term.
value the superintendent and staff
Safeguard well-being,
members'
health and
well-being.
well-being. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's a
striving
value
to
and we're recognizing it
we
without.
recognize that your job is important
Mhm.
to the students, and we value that. But at the same time, I mean, again, a fairy tale ending to the end that they can. I mean, to me, that's the given. I mean, I don't need to explain that.
Yeah,
I want to explain your well-being because obviously there is, and other staff members too.
I should define adequate safeguards.
I think the safeguards,
So we gotta define safeguards, right? So
but I don't
Well,
want.
I think you
Oh.
just. I think
I mean, all
I
of
think
these
too,
are kind of like
yeah.
how we define that we
I mean, we
make
could
only
define this all day.
terms.
Because I was just looking at the board superintendent relationship, it does sort of, or we could potentially, it's 12:10. Add more of that verbiage into that, but
And Mr. Weber brings up a strong point. I think the actions that the boards before you all have taken, especially with me in this role, might take have been very supportive. And I think it's what values as to the support that you all have and the confidence that you all have in me. So I definitely understand.
so maybe we could
We need to
just discuss that in the next, full, or once we break these down and split them, okay, next one, presenting personal criticisms of any employee directly to the superintendent. Is that a guideline? G for G. Next section, a board member shall meet his or her responsibilities to his or her community by attempting to appraise fairly both the present and future educational needs of the community. Didn't we already say that?
Last page, right? G.
Oh, yeah, so that's twice.
cut it.
Here.
Well, there's the difference. Well, no, yes, the difference is previous page, a school board member shall respect his or her relationships with other members of the board by. This one, while it's the same, it's a board member shall meet his or her responsibilities to his or her community. Not so much by, see, the first one was relationships with other board members of the board. This one is a board member shall meet his or her responsibilities to his or her community, which means the same verbiage.
I
same
feel like
language.
it probably goes more into community than it does to other board members personally.
So take out that first page G and add it to the.
So leave the one on page 2, but strike the one on page 1. Is that what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay. Um, regarding it as a major responsibility of the board to interpret the aims and the methods of the schools of the community.
You said it was an ethical guideline.
I put a G.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Yes, this regarding it as a major responsibility. I think that's referring to, meeting responsibilities of the community. Interpret the aims and the methods of the schools of the community. My note says what? Question mark?
And so is that saying remaining objective and/or I think I've heard you all reference, and I think this is one of the questions that we pose to those who are applying for one of the board vacancies. If you are approached in the grocery store or in public, I think interpret the aims and methods of the school. I'm sorry. Make responsibility of the board to interpret the aims and the methods of the schools. Well, no, I'm sorry. Now I'm back to you.
I know.
Yes.
I think we just cross it. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to cross it out, but I read it as this is the board's lead role. So as representatives of the community elected, our role is our community wants preschool. We push for that. Our community wants SROs. We push for our leadership positions in pushing kind of no right or wrong, but let's STEAM program, for instance.
Mhm.
I think in generally the board feels that that's important for our community. And so the board should be on the leading edge of administration. This is what, as the board, we're bringing to our community wants and needs. That's where I kind of put that in, but then I'm fine crossing it out.
Okay. I mean, I like that note.
That's
Maybe
a great
that
point.
needs to be added, but
As representative with constituents, you bring the constituents charges.
I mean, we tried. I mean, I think that's what we tried to do.
To me, this reads
But it really,
understanding the school's needs.
it
Not-
says like interpret, and it's like
Yeah.
it's written so weirdly.
Yes, it's written.
I made a note on that one, so I think we could just reword it or make a clear understanding. Yeah. Insisting that all school business transactions be an open, ethical, and above board basis. My note is we try. I think it's also weird to say insist.
Yeah.
Because we can only
Just say all school doors be open. That says you're trying. That's the expectation.
But is that something we aren't necessarily charged with that?
All school business transactions. I mean, that's pretty, we're not supposed to be in the weed. How do we know?
Right, that
I mean,
seems it would be
Okay.
something that
Oversight. But
is guideline.
yes.
All right,
And
fair enough.
we
Yeah.
oversee him, so
Strike it. We'll get his own here.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Vigorously seeking adequate financial support for the schools. My note was how, because we can't. First of all, we can't even. We can solicit donations. We can go talk. We cannot physically donate money.
Touch the money.
Yeah.
We can't.
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like straight it.
You guys are crushing it.
Refusing to use her position on a school board in any way whatsoever for personal gain or personal prestige.
I think that one, I don't know.
I
I think that one's necessary.
I think it's necessary. I do think
I think it's
it's a
ethics.
slippery. Yeah,
But
I think it's a slippery slope. Because personal gain or personal prestige. It doesn't say monetary.
So you want to add monetary?
Thank you.
Should we say like in a monetary way? Or are we okay keeping it?
personal
Well,
I
gain.
think this
Personal
could,
gain could be monetary.
Could be
Could be
anything. Yeah.
I see this could be used.
monetarily.
I mean, let's
If you
say I'm on
approve
REO board,
Mhm.
and now that we own McBride, I want to leverage my position here for REO.
Mhm.
That might not be appropriate.
It might, and then what's the difference in if you add the monetary component?
So if you're on again another board from another area, you use this to get what you want.
Or if you're a supplier of any material
Mhm.
that you're doing a renovation at the high school, and my company is providing material for that renovation, I should exclude myself from any discussion to me or vote on approving that to happen. To me, that would be a monetary gain that you would make by having that.
When Jeff was on the board, we bought a lot from his supply house. I mean, a couple thousand almost every month, I think. So he
would
was
that
gaining
fall underneath
monetarily,
this? So he would
but he
be-
never abstained from the consent items. So
You should.
Should have.
I mean,
Well, should there be a
Should we put monetary,
action?
even though a personal gain could qualify as?
Or could we also look at that as non-monetarily, and again, from a personal
Yeah.
gain standpoint?
Yeah.
If I'm a school board member, and I want my daughter in that advanced placement class, or I'm a school board member.
Basketball team
Oh, yeah. Good
That's
point.
starting
Oh,
guard.
yeah, you could use
Yeah.
it. Leverage,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yes,
point.
yeah.
And just
So
even
it's-
on the people at play to be like,
Yeah.
sorry, you can't vote on this. You can't discuss this.
but those are in the weeds. We're not. I
I
mean,
know, but if we have.
Once again, I would be cautionary on listing specifics.
Yeah.
I think
I would
personal
list
gain
specifics.
encompasses everything.
And that's where I
really
go back to some of the things that Horton has even alluded to during that new board member meeting. Or, I'm sorry, new board member academy that we attended. They're pretty. I think one of the things they would say is that if there's gray area, it's always
Go caution.
To caution.
I mean, if you put personal gain column, I mean, let's just be English majors here. I mean, we put personal gain, comma, monetarily, and or personal prestige. I mean, we encompass everything. Well, we do it with a comma.
But to me, if we just leave it as is, it covers everything. It covers monetary, it covers anything.
gain is gain.
Gain is gain.
What about
Yeah,
professional gain? Should it be personal, professional, or just personal? Because it could be if you have a.
Yeah, I got a link saying that they had board positions available for me just yesterday.
I've seen that too. I'm like, yeah, I can be on the board. Like, you
So it
know.
must be that they picked up AI board in my LinkedIn profile.
Okay,
What if it's professional gain
Yeah,
or personal prestige?
there you go. I like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Professional gain or personal.
I think personal gain is important.
You do?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
I wouldn't change it.
I would just leave it like
Leave it
this.
as is.
Okay. Okay.
But it's an E.
Yeah.
That's an E, right?
Refusing to discuss personnel matters on any other confidential business of the board in her home, on the street, or in her office. I just said doesn't make sense because we could be on the phone. It's like our house is bugged. Refusing to discuss. I mean, we don't talk personnel with anyone, but it should just say refusing to discuss personnel matters outside of.
Or any other confidential business, I would say. I
Like, I
guess
think
it's
of
like
the-
that.
of-
Yeah.
The kid that was
outside.
he got kicked out the 8th grade trip, and his dad's at my door. I mean, I'm going to listen to him, and all I did was chain of command. I mean, and so, but I'm thinking that would be a confidential business. I would think.
Yeah, to me,
Right.
this is saying you're not discussing that with someone else. Like,
Sharing that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of more sharing because I think we get stuff in the grocery store all the time, and if it's just
Well, maybe we should say sharing.
yes,
Rather
Okay.
than discussing.
So refusing.
So we're going to have the
share,
discussions,
yes,
but what we do with
Yes.
those discussions is what's important.
You
Refuse,
can't share.
yeah,
I mean, the right thing is to pass them on to Dr. Wright.
yes.
Okay, refusing to share personnel matters or any other confidential business of the board outside of an official meeting. I feel like in home on the street, like that's just weird.
It's weird.
So can we say outside?
Just say stop at board, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I'm meeting at 10:30. I need to go through.
I gotta go here.
Okay. Sorry, we were actually. We're on the phone with this one. Winning the community's confidence that all is being done in the best interest of the children. We can't win. I mean, that's our goal, right? We want confidence. Like,
Yeah.
we want to do what's best. I don't think that's necessary. Strike it.
F was strike discuss.
Yeah, I got
Strike
that.
discuss and action. And then stop it.
Yeah.
I want to
Got that, yeah.
And striking G.
The last section, it's Indiana School Board Association. A board member shall maintain a safe and healthy environment for students by maintaining appropriate boundaries with students, personal space, and personal life. So I don't even know if we need this section, but okay. Maintaining appropriate, I'm just gonna read through all of them.
I mean,
Maintaining,
it's just difficult. I mean, appropriate boundaries is undefined, so it means whatever you want it to mean, right?
and wouldn't we
For the most
fall
part.
under staff with this? Like, does this need to be in the board member ethics? Because we are also staff, and I think this is in the staff policy. It seems weird to like pull out the board. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and I definitely understand where you're coming from. I know that just yesterday, I sat on the Boys and Girls Club of Wayne County Board of Directors, and we actually just reviewed this same very verbiage.
Mhm.
And while we too, to your point, are staff, they made it apparent. And I think there was some not statute or there was some federal guidelines they had to put in motion. So we just had to do this and sign up and consent, provide consent to them. So, but no, I hear what you're saying. Yes, you would think it'd be just understood that as a staff member, we'll adhere to these. But I know that that particular board and let's say the 10 boards I sit on.
Yeah. Or maybe this whole section is just G, and we just like if we separate these out. Does anyone have a?
Well, I mean, I still think the photo stuff. I mean, I think the sporting events you could argue that were open to the public, but like I did a day in the life of the high school series where Ray knew I was in the building and what I was doing. Is that enough to be approval of that? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either, because we also don't know what students' parents have signed the release for.
Yeah. I mean, there's because I've seen a lot of like, especially at the elementary, they'll block kids' faces out in a lot of photographs. And I think I would say, obviously, if some kid, I think I've had to take one. I think one kid requested this picture taken down, and obviously I'll do that. But
Do you post them? I mean, do you?
I used to. I haven't shot for a while, but yeah, I mean, I've got probably thousands of pictures of high school kids.
But I didn't know. I think there's a difference between you personally posting them and you making those available to the high school to post, or the athletic department to post.
They are available, for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean,
To me, I could be wrong, but that's what I see as.
But like you got the okay from Ray,
Right.
so right versus you're just out taking
yeah.
pictures.
I mean, like I say, it just seems a little.
I think those. I
think the trash
I think this section maybe
big
it
G.
needs to be over here and not.
Okay.
It's a G and not an E.
Somewhere
we could get clarification.
I guess what about when we're at a sporting event when our child is participating and we take a picture? I don't have social media, but say I have Facebook, I post, oh, my son doing this, that, or the other, and your son's in that picture or whatever, or somebody else's kid.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, as a parent, I usually try to block out other kids unless I, know the families. So, but that's just me as a parent. I've seen my kid in other people's pictures, and I'm like, not big deal as they get older, but I've come across years later, like baby pictures of my kids, and some acquaintance of an acquaintance.
I mean, I think
get fired up.
if
We can
running-
reach out to Mr. Horton and ask him.
I think at a public event, there's no expectation of privacy. So I think you can take a picture and post whoever you want.
Right.
It's just a problem when you're in the school, in a classroom,
Well,
or
We can get clarification. And that other indeed policy 8330, student records maintaining the confidentiality of students in accordance with law. And I'm like, we don't have access to those. I don't think
yeah.
we would ever request them. I guess we probably.
It's kind of the same thing with personnel files. You guys just couldn't come in and say, hey, I want to see so-and-so's
Right,
personnel file. You can't
So
do
it's,
that either.
that's
really not necessary.
strange to me that.
But it is odd that teachers can access anybody's record. Because I know there's been some,
They can access,
like I've had teachers say, oh, I looked at such and such, who's not in their class and seems to have all their grades and everything. And this has been years ago, so maybe it's changed. I was like, why are you looking at my kid's stuff not in your class?
yeah,
I do know.
that's an ethic on their part.
Yeah.
But
So
I
it
mean,
doesn't, I mean, so at the school, the records are kept in filing cabinets. And so as a teacher, you can,
but it was like look electronically, they were looking stuff up. I don't know. I mean, again, it doesn't matter. But it just was
Yeah,
a little unsettling when you hear stuff like that.
Yeah, this whole section, it's kind of like, right, the superintendent is our employee. Maintaining the safe and healthy environment for the student is, I just think we address it elsewhere, so.
I've got to go.
Okay. So I think on this one, we didn't get
Scratch
to
communication.
personal communication, we'll start with that one next time.
Okay.
But I can kind of split these out, the E's and the G's. And then
So that last section, you said move it to guideline.
move into guidelines, and we just need to discuss,
Okay.
like, if it even belongs in there. And it seems more like a corporation.
Yeah.
And administration has their administrative guidelines. Maybe we should have it too. Board administrative guidelines. We have like 3 of them.
That's true. So, I can put some of these things together.
Yeah.
And send it out to whoever isn't here. And then I don't know what's on the agenda for the 11th. If we split it out, maybe we can always talk about this, because this is second reading one, right? We're gonna have to do second reading, so then that was third reading, okay. So at least just get this one down. Or, and then maybe once we split it out, it's just a little clearer on how we do it.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I'm a member of the Coalition, Racial Equity Coalition, and we really appreciate the feedback that we received on the draft policy, equity policy that we brought forward. It's very helpful, and the coalition wants to follow the recommendation from the board, which is to look at the policies and see where definitions, statements around equity and inclusion and things like that would be included into the policy. So how do we go about integrating that information into this process? You know, because we have been actively looking at policies and determining where we have recommendations for changes. So what's the process for
I
that?
know we've identified policies that we thought accounted for the equity, inclusion, and diversity group. I would bring those to this group. I mean, let's pull those. There's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
Let's just bring them forward and at if not the next one.
Yeah.
The first quarter, we start with those.
Yeah.
And to Mr. Weber's point, I think of those policies, and I think that's one of the things the coalition had alluded to when you all last presented. I think many of those policies center around non-discrimination. Excuse me, trying to get over a code, non-discriminatory practices. But I think to Mr. Weber's point, of what we have. And I think that was one of the things that was discussed during the coalition work, is trying to couple them with existing policies. And I think to Ms. Weber's point, we'll sift those out and bring those to the next board.
And we'd review them
Okay.
like we did today, and you would be in attendance and could
Yeah.
offer.
All right.
I mean,
So do you want us to forward the suggestions that we
You wanna-
have to
Oh,
those?
You want to make an appointment with me? I mean, would it be okay with
Yeah.
the board if she made an appointment with me and she could come in and we could
Absolutely.
kind of come up with some ideas to bring to the next one. That way
Okay, yeah,
they would have them available.
that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, so that answers the questions that we had. Okay, this is a great process.
Mhm.
But if someone outside the board has suggestions about things to be included or removed, you know how we'll do that. So we'll work with Stacy and.
Yeah.
Or Mr.
And so, Mrs. Carter, I'm not sure,
Stacy, always.
Mr. Carter, I'm not sure if you were, I believe you were present a few years ago when we, during our educational working group, had brought the Racial Equity Coalition to the same dais to engage in conversation. I'm not sure if you were part of that or not.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the first meeting when we introduced the
When we
idea.
introduced, that's right, that's right. So,
So it's kind of different.
yeah, this is a little bit different than that, but yeah, engagement is what it's all about.
Yes.
Involvement, that's right.
I do think so. Just for you all too, we just did board did implicit bias training, and the admin did too. Do we have his slides?
Dr. Parker?
Yeah.
I believe so. And Dr. Parker also, a few years ago, prior to you coming on board, had also provided, we provided implicit bias training for the entire corporation, all faculty, staff, even students, to part in implicit bias and microaggression. I believe this started, I think you were part of that, Ms.
Yes,
Pearson and a
we
few
were.
others. And so, yeah, so we've extended that with Dr. Parker, who led it a few years ago, the same
Okay, great.
coordinator, just provided implicit bias training for our cabinet as well as our entire.
Because I know there were a couple
for you.
points that you made, and President Bruns even mentioned, just his actual explanation of it, and resetting our thoughts on it. I think it was really helpful.
Yeah.
You couldn't be there, but it was like there's a couple points that you really made, and it's sort of just a reminder section of like when we talk about this, we apply it to this.
It's great for increasing awareness.
Great.
Absolutely. I'll try to work these slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to set a date for the next one?
Sure.
So we can either do the week of December 16th.
I can do.
Or we could do, that's probably about the best.
Strategic plan.
Strategic plan.
On the 17th, we could do the 19th.
Is the strategic plans in the 17th.
You could do that Thursday, the 19th. I'm out the week before that, so I won't.
I could do Thursday the 19th.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We won't be able to meet in here because they're having secretary training from 9 to 10:30.
Okay.
Or we can still meet in here, it would just be a different, after that, the training. So if we met at maybe noon.
Miss Pickering has
Sure.
issues.
Actually, yeah, I need to do earlier.
Move secretary training to the front office, or
But could it be in the old boardroom?
We can be in the old forum, yes,
Okay.
yes. Which is,
So do we have?
it's harder to.
It's during the daytime with patrons that visit our administrative building.
What about the 18th?
Wednesday the 18th.
Yeah, John, what mornings do you have?
Miss
Nothing.
Elsmeyer says she can move the secretary training to the front.
I don't want to move them from this.
Okay. We could do Wednesday. It's the day after the
So there's principal.
Be the morning.
there's principal meeting in the morning. We can do Monday. It's the day before,
I guess the principal meeting.
or we could do the 20th, and we can do that Friday as well.
Yeah.
Well, Friday is, but we're usually out before the coaches.
I'm checked out.
The
But
principal
my
meeting
goal
might
is
have any effect on
I
this,
took
though.
the week of Christmas off, so that's gonna start. Can we do Monday?
We do
The
like
16th?
10 a.m. Monday.
What's that?
We do around 10.
I can do 10.
I can do Monday.
Monday at 10.
We'll have to, we'll rearrange this when we meet for cabinet.
Oh.
That's
I
all
can
that's
miss that.
standing
I
cabinet.
can miss that.
I bet you can. I bet you could. I bet you could.
What time would work better for you, Dr. Rack?
We just our standing cap meetings and Mondays at 10. We can rearrange it. We will reschedule it. Not a problem. Not a problem. 10 o'clock Monday the 16th.
Mhm.
It works for everybody. It's perfect. There it is.
It's not too much trouble for you to rearrange it. Okay.
We'll at that particular juncture, we'll reschedule.
And then, Stacy, let me know, I would say the, DEI, maybe that would be January. Cause the meeting in January, if, once you meet with Ms. Carter.
Okay.
And then, cause I wanna get through personal communication devices.
Okay.
For sure. And
Hopefully by the end.
so then maybe we can.
That might be the one we do that day.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have confidence in it, but that's a tough one. It is a tough one. So, but we'll plan for more, but we'll put that one first.
Perfect.
That's okay.
Okay, great.
Appreciate you all. Safe Thanksgiving recess.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Just tell my.
I've let my ex-husband
You
schedule.
want to set up a day?
Richmond family the area.
Oh, Amber,
Maybe, yeah.
we'll go to Smile Time.
It's right up there behind the car wash.
Anytime is fine.
Or used to be.
Probably,
Yeah, is that,
bring it.
You like it?
Here.
Oh, are you?
That's probably the
I went to,
probably the
yeah.
So anytime, yeah, so the January meeting like this.
Right now.
Okay.
But if we meet ahead of time, then maybe I gotta go take my share some ideas and then we can meet again.
Please, everyone else, and he's not, so he's not playing his game. Well,
So after our first games last weekend,
We could, you wanna meet?
Brian and I were talking on the phone later that night, and I mean, we just did not look right, out of sync, and a lot of this, we got some of the usual attitude issues
Oh,
and
yeah.
lack of focus, but
We'll come see you all here in a few
I
days.
told him, you know what, this absolutely said, our glue guy, like Ryder King, versus high school.
Very simple, yes. Very simple. That group of guys, yeah.
Yeah, so I suggest,
Morning.
When Ryder was, when he was not able to
Retired.
Oh, yeah,
so
you
you
just
tell
picked
me.
it
up.
Yeah.
For more than
yeah, we see it on offense, we see it on the press, we see it even in
No,
practice,
sometimes-
that
sometimes,
kids follow directions. You know,
Morning is probably better.
his coach is moving out of shape.
Oh, 10 o'clock. You said 10 o'clock. That's not 2 o'clock.
Mhm.
10
And
o'clock.
his coach.
see you guys.
You all be safe. Yes, sir. Yes.
December
You cooking it all on the Memorial?
Yeah, I'm actually cooking turkey, but.
Are you
December,
really?
and then we might meet again.
I know
We might meet again.
I know she's great.
I'm doing it. Thank you too.
Happy Thanksgiving, ladies.
Good,
Be
Steve.
safe.
Thank you.
So his coach, I'm careful, gets beside himself.
Mhm.
I can't.
Moment.
So,
He
I did my.
He's starting to draw attention from everyone.
We'll just go ahead and meet. We'll say we're gonna meet there. We'll just say we'll meet in my
And
office.
he sits coach down.
That's
He sits
awesome.
coach down on the bench.
That's
And so,
awesome.
and we're back in the game. It was just, I'll tell you, I wish I had an old camera, man, but I mean, that was last Thursday that occurred. Coach then sent some correspondence to everyone. And, but no, he's a great kid, man.
Pearson.
See,
He wants to.
Hey.